right. Well, we are still stuck in topic 1 at this point because I kind of digressed and talked about some stuff that belong to later topics. But I'm still hoping that most of you got, the content that we talked about on Thursday. Okay? Did someone go back home and try to make sure that you have the sufficient protection on your computer, like antivirus programs and stuff like that? Yep. Okay. Okay. For those of you who are kind of interested, and want to find out, how to best protect your computer, there are a lot of options, and some are actually free. You can go to Microsoft, and I'm not sure what it's still called, Windows Essentials. Security Essentials. Security Essentials. It's free from Microsoft, so just look for Windows Security Essentials in Google. Make sure that URL shows up, as microsoft.com/security_essentials. Yes?
Is that just basic protection or is it substantial?
I cannot qualify that. Does anyone want to comment on the? Yep.
I've used it for like a year or two now. It's compared with like other ones you pay for, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
I'm wondering if this
It's really
if it's
good.
easy to, does it really remove viruses and malware? It's
Yeah.
easy to use?
Yeah, it's really pretty easy to use.
Yep.
It has live protection too.
Has live protection, which means when you download files or when you browse web pages, it will inspect the content before it is quote unquote activated, right? So that's good. I mean, it is free. Okay, it's free. So if you don't want it, you can always uninstall it. Yep, go ahead.
Don't you, if you have multiple like antivirus, anti-malware stuff, it actually compromises your system rather than helps it?
I do not know. I have not have that situation. Yep.
It causes conflicts when you have two antiviruses.
Oh, they try to step on each other.
Yeah, pretty much. They think the other one is a virus, and they'll attack you.
They will attack each other.
Yeah.
Great. So we have, basically, two PDs, two police departments from two different cities, and at the boundary, they misidentify each other as crooks.
They pretty much shoot each other.
That would be bad. Yep.
Actually, in my case, there's been some problems with that because I think we have like antivirus as well as Windows Security Essentials, and it keeps coming up with a blue screen of death saying that we need to uninstall one of the antivirus.
I see. Okay. Well, I don't have that problem because I only have one installed on my system. I just use Windows or Microsoft Security Essentials, because it's free. I know some of these antivirus, software, tend to hog a lot of resources. So when you run it, your system becomes, significantly slower. With Windows Security Essentials, I have not really noticed, a big degradation of performance, or at least not as much as some of the other products that I have tried. With some of the other products too, if you want to get rid of it, it's really hard to get rid of Norton. I tried it on several systems before, and it was really hard to get rid of it. With some of the other products, if you don't want it, just click nope, I want to delete it, and it's pretty easy to get rid of it.
So is Norton good?
I cannot say that. Yep.
How about AVG?
AVG has a good reputation, but I have not used it personally, so I can't really say.
Yeah, I've used it about 2 years now, and well, it's actually given me pretty good
Protection.
Giving me pretty good protection.
Yeah, I think any one of these products, especially the free ones from Microsoft, having it is much better than not having it at all. So I think that makes a huge difference already. Now between all the paid versions, I'm pretty sure some are better and some are not as good. But the differences between those, would be somewhat minor unless your computer is constantly exposed to a lot of threats. Yep, go ahead.
I was trying to figure out how to remove viruses without an antivirus program using a terminal or
It'll be pretty hard.
Or CMD.
CMD or command line interface. Yeah, that's going to be pretty hard, because if your system is already infected, using the infected system to try to remove the infection is extremely difficult. Any virus that let you remove it while it is infected, while on an infected system, is not, it's not a practical virus. I mean, most viruses will protect itself sufficiently so that you cannot remove the virus or the infection on the infected system itself. There was one infection that I was trying to remove. It was really kind of interesting because the virus actually starts up 3 processes. When you do Control-Alt-Delete and look at the task manager, there were 3 processes. A process is a program in execution. So there were 3 programs in execution that are related to the same infection. If you try to kill one of them, the other 2 will try to respawn the one that was killed. And since you cannot kill all 3 processes at the same time, there's no way to get rid of it. Now, as long as they're running, they would not let you run your antivirus either. Because as soon as you try to run your antivirus, your system will just reboot. Yep. You want to say something? No?
No, but I did have a problem once. There was one virus on the operating system and the same virus on the RAM, so when I delete the virus of the operating system, I couldn't access the RAM, so when I restart, the virus on the RAM will reinstall itself on the operating system, and the one on the RAM is destroyed.
Some can install itself in the boot sector too. So in that case, the virus can reinstall itself into the file system every time you reboot the system. So you kind of have to, if you have a serious, infection like that sort, sometimes you just have to let somebody else to deal with it, to help you, remove the infected files. Or, the other thing is you just grab the files that you need, like your documents and stuff like that, and put it onto a thumb drive, and clean those files, separately on another system, and then just reformat the hard drive and reinstall Windows. Sometimes there's no choice but to, do everything from scratch again. So that's why it's more important. The more important it is to install something like this to help you protect your system, so you don't have to reinstall anything. Yep.
What about tablets? Do they need some type of security software?
That's a good question. The question was how about tablets and smartphones and stuff like that? The answer is, it is getting to the point where you might get infection from with a cell phone. Because remember, a cell phone is nothing more than a computer pretending to be a cell phone. So anything that can potentially happen to a computer, like infection, worms, viruses, Trojans and stuff like that, they can easily happen to a cell phone as well. So now it depends on the Android operating system and see how secure it is, see how well we can isolate applications from the core part of the operating system. If you're not careful, when you download and install an app and they ask you, can I do this, can I do this, can I do this, you can actually sometimes, if you don't read that list, some applications really should not have access to all the resources that it needs, that it claims that it needs. So when you see something like that, like a game, requesting that it needs access to your contact list and stuff like that, you should probably say no and do not install that software. Yep. All right. Good questions. Yep.
What about those? What about those little apps like WeatherBug that install toolbars that are impossible to remove? Is there any way to get rid of those on the web browser?
I had certain software to remove programs. Sometimes you have to have you have to rely on things that are designed to remove programs, and not to use the built-in ability of Windows to do it. I cannot remember the name of the product that I was using, but it was able to clean up everything. It actually tried to find out what files the application was installing in the system. So when you try to uninstall it, it's not just cleaning up according to the uninstaller, because the uninstaller of a program or of an application can uninstall only certain parts of the program and leave certain things behind, and most of the time intentionally. So the next time you install, it can continue to track your system and stuff like that. So there are programs out there that can really scan through your entire system to look for things that are specific to that program and remove every single little thing that it leaves behind.
Like Incredibar.
I cannot remember application uninstaller or cleaner. I cannot remember the name, but I was using one particular product, and it was pretty good at removing stuff.
Did you have to pay for it?
Yeah, I think I paid like $30 for it or something like that. So it wasn't too bad. Yep. So very good. So I was kind of glad that we did that little digression, so that we were bringing up something that is more relevant to you earlier, and I think that's good. we were talking about open source, and I think we started on Libreoffice, if not completely done with it already. Nope, I think we were just getting started, and I got digressed to talk about computer security, antivirus and Trojans, virus, worms, and all the other fun stuff that your computer can get when you're not careful or when users are not careful. Oh, there's also one more thing that I should make everybody aware of. If you're running Windows Home, any type of home edition, any regular user is actually running as an administrator. Now that is particularly kind of dangerous because that means when you're browsing, or if anyone is using your system as a regular user to browse online and encounter a Trojan, that Trojan actually is running with administrator access, and it can install itself on the hard drive, as opposed to the non-home editions where a regular user has more limited access to the system files, so it cannot as easily infect the entire system. How many people have the home edition of Windows, 7, 8, or Vista at home? If you buy a computer and Windows comes with it, most of the time it is the home edition, unless you pay extra money to get the non-home editions.
Why is the home edition good?
The home edition, well, all these different editions of Windows, the differences are all completely artificial. It's only for marketing purposes, so you have to pay more for the higher level type of
So if we have Windows
editions.
7 right now, and it's supposed to be Windows 8, we're all right?
You have to check. You can go to Control Panel Systems, and then check it. It will tell you which version of Windows you're running: 32-bit versus 64-bit. Vista 7 or 8. It will also tell you which edition you're running. Are you running Home? Is it Home Premium? Like a slightly upgraded Home version. But I think in that one, it's still running. You're still running as administrator. The default user account is still running as administrator. Yeah. So you can look into that kind of stuff using YouTube. There are people who talk about computer security on YouTube, and they show you exactly how you can make your system more secure. Or you can take a class here. We have a CISS, CIS security classes. Most people will find the first class, CISS 301, which is ethical hacking, to be an interesting class because it talks about quote-unquote hacking, but it's more from the perspective of an end user of how to defend against threats. So it's a good class to take if you're kind of new to this topic and want to learn some more about that. All right, so we're moving on to LibreOffice as a case study. This is not the only open source software, but it's one of the ones that a lot of people install. Okay, so LibreOffice, which is formerly known as OpenOffice, when it was developed by Sun Microsystem, and at this point it is now Oracle. Oracle owns Sun, and the entire team basically left Oracle and became LibreOffice. It's an open source productivity suite. We talked about productivity software or applications before. Even though just about anything can be called productivity program or software or application, in this sense it is more in the office setting. So you have word processing, spreadsheet, database access, and presentation. Those are all the essential components of a productivity suite. There are two ways to install LibreOffice, and this applies to most of the other open source applications as well. The first method is go to the home page and download the installer. So I'm going to right click here and open a new tab. So we are just going here. Oh, LibreOffice 4.0 is here. Okay, I didn't know that, so this is cool because we have a new version of OpenOffice or LibreOffice. There we have it. And the best way, if you go this route, to download or to install it, is to click this link here, I suppose. I don't see any clear links to download it yet. Main website. Okay, let's go to the main website. Yep.
Well, I have. Okay, which one's better, LibreOffice or the open source? Because you can still get open source.
LibreOffice is open source.
Oh.
So it is, it's just the name is called LibreOffice, but it is open. It's an open source application. That's why it is free, and you can download it and install on as many computers as you want. So I guess you get to the main page, you click download, and it automatically figures out what operating system you're running. So in this case, it already tells me that I have this particular main installer. When you go in using Windows, it will give you the Windows installer instead of an RPM for Linux. So that's one way to install it. Now, if you use this method to install LibreOffice, LibreOffice will only be installed on the same computer that you ran the installer on, okay? Which is okay if you only use 1 or 2 computers. And since this is open source, you can repeat this process on all of the computers that you have access to. So you have LibreOffice installed on all of those computers. But it's still kind of troublesome if you go through this particular method. There's another way to do it. So let me just kind of finish this paragraph first. When you run the installer using this particular method, it installs LibreOffice on your computer. And I want to emphasize this part here. This process installs all kinds of files on your hard drive. Most importantly, it will install what we call DLLs, or dynamic link libraries, to the system. So that means LibreOffice can only run on that particular computer. If you go to a different computer, you'll have to reinstall LibreOffice to run it on a different computer, which is kind of troublesome, and sometimes it is impossible. Okay, so let's just say that you're using LibreOffice for all of your school projects, or all the school paper and stuff like that. You take your documents to, let's say, the library, and then you find out that at the library they don't have LibreOffice installed. What are you going to do? Well, there's not much you can do because you don't have administrative right on those computers to install LibreOffice. So then you have to use Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office, can open LibreOffice format, depending on the version and whether it is updated or not. Okay, it is possible, but those two products are not 100% compatible. So when Microsoft Office is trying to open up LibreOffice documents, sometimes it doesn't open completely correctly, and and vice versa too. So the other way to do it is to, let me just finish the next paragraph. Even if you specify to install LibreOffice to a removable drive, it still doesn't work because some of the files are installed into the systems folder inside Windows. So that's why even if you specify a destination that is on the thumb drive, you still cannot run LibreOffice from the thumb drive itself using this particular method. The other method is to use portable apps. Now, let me just open up a new tab here. They go to portableapps.com. Now, this is a very interesting website because you can find a lot of the open source products that we have just talked about, the GIMP, LibreOffice, Inkscape, and so on and so forth. So you can use it, kind of like a catalog of open source software available for Windows. But in addition to that, portable apps means you can install the application on a thumb drive, on a removable drive. And the point is, if you install it on a removable drive, you can plug in the removable drive on any Windows system and be able to use the application from the thumb drive itself. So in this scenario, if you use, let's just say you use LibreOffice at home, and you use the thumb drive here, you save the document on the very same thumb drive that you have installed your application. When you need to work on your document again on any Windows computer, you plug in your thumb drive, and you can start the application from the thumb drive itself. So your application goes with you, it's on the thumb drive or external hard drive or whatever you want to carry with you as an external storage. Are we doing okay so far in terms of the concept? So let me just give you a little prop here so I can talk about it in a way. So in other words, what I can do is I can also install LibreOffice portable version on my little SD card here. Once I do that, I can save the documents on my little SD card here too. When I'm home, I plug in my SD card on any computer at home, any Windows machine at home, and I can work on my document. When I'm done with this at home, I take this with me to the school. I can go to the library, I can go to the LRC, I can go to the computer science lab. I don't care whether LibreOffice is installed on those computers. I plug this in, I have my document and my application on the same device. And then I'll be ready to use LibreOffice to continue to work on my English paper, history paper, or whatever. So that gives you that flexibility to do everything like this, okay? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so if you download this, what do you do to your other stuff you had? You delete it?
No, you don't have to delete anything. When you install LibreOffice on a SD card like this, it is completely independent from the one that is already installed on your computer. So you can actually choose which one to run. Now, the nice thing about installing it here is not only is the application here with you, but all your settings and all your add-ons, all the additional stuff that you install would also be here. And that's really nice because if you have a special configuration for spell check or whatever, it stays with the SD card. So no matter where you go, as long as you're running it from the SD card, you have the same settings. So that's, I think that's a really nice feature.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Is that feature only exclusive to LibreOffice, or what other open source?
No, it's not. It's not specific to LibreOffice. Let's go through portable apps here and find out what other applications it has. But they all basically share the same characteristic. All your settings, go with. They're all stored on the same device that you install the portable app. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take a look here. You can see in the directory, it has all these different categories. For us, in this class, let's just focus on. We'll focus on Office first, okay? Because that's the very last topic that we talked about.
Can we get the roll sheet?
Yes, absolutely. Roll sheet.
Thank you.
Here. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So in this case, we have diagram, document viewers of all kinds. Okay, this is a PDF viewer. So if you install eBeans or something like that on a portable drive, then you no longer rely on having Acrobat Reader installed on a computer, because now you can run this particular program called eBeans, E-V-I-N-C-E. It can view a variety of documents, PDF, PS, PostScript. DJ, VU, TIFF, DVI, those are the less common formats from the Windows perspective. We have financial software, journaling software, Office Suite, which basically you want to go to LibreOffice. So let me just open up LibreOffice from the perspective of portable apps. So here you can see that you can also download the version 4 point something. Now this one is a little bit different because this one allows you to install it on a removable drive. You have to download 100 megabytes, so you have to kind of make sure that your bandwidth has enough. You have enough bandwidth with your internet access to download it. 100 megabytes is not too bad. After installation, it can take up to 330 megabytes on your portable device. With most of the portable devices that we buy for even $6, for $6 you can buy an 8 gigabyte USB thumb drive. So this is not really that much storage, in a 8 gigabyte storage device. 8 gigabytes means 8,000 megabytes. So this is only using 300 and something out of 8,000. So it's not really taking up that much resources on an 8 gig device. An 8 gig device is pretty much the smallest you can buy, at Walmart or Office Depot and all the stores like that. So it's not taking up that much resources. The only part you have to watch out for is most of those devices, especially the inexpensive ones, they are very slow to write to. So the installation process can take a long time. We're talking about an hour or so. But once it is installed, running it is not slow. Okay, it's just the installation part that is going to be time consuming. But once you have installed it, it's not really that slow. Or you can opt for a class 10 SD card. That would be a lot faster. Yep, go ahead.
I noticed over here it's got a user login. Do you have to create a?
Nope. You just click the download link and you can download. I think the user login is mostly for getting notifications. Like when there's a new version of something, then you get a notification. I have never signed in. I don't have an account on portableapps.com, and I don't have any problems downloading or installing. Okay. Any other questions? Yep. Go ahead.
On the test, there was a question about installing multiple or the same open source program onto a computer multiple times.
And that's allowed. Yes. Yeah, it is allowed because open source basically means it is free. The only thing you cannot do is to change the licensing or change the copyright notice or change who wrote that program. So those are the things that you cannot do. But other than that, you can install it on as many computers as you want. All right. So this is actually a pretty good tool. But we can also go to some other stuff here in terms of portable apps. In education, they have software for astronomy. I really like these software. They are different type of software, but they're both very educational. If you like astronomy, or if you think you know someone who likes astronomy, both of these programs are really worthwhile to install, especially on a little thumb drive, so you can run it on any computer you want to run it on. The first one, which is the one that I'm pointing at right now, Celestia, is a space simulator. In other words, you can say, I want to go to Jupiter, okay? And then the software will kind of bring you to Jupiter. It's kind of like flying in outer space. Well, I shouldn't say flying, but navigating in outer space, okay? Because there's no air, you cannot fly in outer space. So you can navigate to Jupiter, and once you're in orbit, okay, you kind of remember the good old, Star Trek, where the Enterprise is orbiting a planet. You can actually orbit a planet and use the middle button to kind of scroll, so you can actually rotate around the planet, and you can use the scroll wheel to also zoom in to the surface, so you can actually look at features on a particular planet, assuming that we have enough pictures of that planet to begin with.
And that's free?
And it's free, yes. You can also go to nearby star systems. If we have enough information and enough images of a nearby star system, it can also bring you to the star system, so you can have a closer view of the star system.
And that's all portableapps.com.
And it's portable app, which means you can install it on a little SD card.
No, I'm saying the website's portableapps.com.
Yes.
And just hit education.
We are right here. We just click education as the category. This is the website.
All right.
Portableapps.com.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the size of that?
Well, you just click on it and find out. Portable apps this one will take 63 megabytes installed, which is not terrible.
Yeah.
63 megabytes used to be like, wow, that's a lot of storage. That's in my entire hard drive, but these days it's like, whatever. Yep.
How quickly, what's the difference, what's the transfer rate between between an SD card and a 3.0 USB?
That's a good question. Okay, so that's a kind of like a digression. So let me finish this discussion, and then we'll go to that other discussion. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so if you already have those apps, those applications on your computer, and you want to do the portable app, shouldn't you delete it off?
Nope. You don't have to delete. If you want to, that's okay. But you don't have to delete the application already installed on your computer, because the way you install a portable app is you specify. When it asks you where you want to install it, you have to install it to your D drive, E drive, or whatever is the drive letter for your external storage device. And that is completely independent to the one that you have already installed on your computer. And I would not remove the one that's already on your computer unless there's a reason to do it. Because sometimes you may not want to have to plug in your SD card or your USB thumb drive to use the application. So you want to keep the one that's already on your computer. But the one on the SD card gives you the flexibility of, I forgot to bring my computer today, or I don't want to travel with my computer, but I will still have access to a Windows computer somewhere. Then it allows you to plug in just the SD card or your USB thumb drive, and you'll still be able to use the application and access your document. Yep.
Upon what you're saying, that it asks you, I know normally when you download something, it asks you where you want to carry to. But if you're using Windows 8, it usually don't turn on that because I just got through trying to download it, and It didn't ask me anything, just download it to my hard drive.
Okay. You have to run the installer to install the application.
Right, I did the install and download and stuff, and it just asked me, do I want to save or open? And when I said save, it just started saving to the hard drive.
Normally, if you are saving it, it saves to your download folder.
Yeah, so I know it's on my download folder right now.
Right.
You know, it's on my hard drive.
Then you can run it from your download folder and run the installer. Does it let you run the installer?
Right now, it just asks me if I want to run it, I can run it.
Okay. So when you run it, you run it and install it on your external hard drive or your thumb drive. Because that's the reason why you want to do it the portable way instead of the non-portable method. Okay, the other one is called Stellarium. Now, Stellarium is also an astronomy program, but this one is more like for people who want to observe the night sky. In other words, it turns your computer into your own planetarium. Okay, so this way, if you run this program, and this one installed to about 70 megabytes. So between those two, it takes up 150 megabytes or so.
Well, today's computers ain't that.
Yeah, in today's computer or in today's mass store devices, that's almost nothing. But this one, will show the night sky. You can actually turn the time. You can control the time. And you can basically say, well, today is kind of cloudy, so it's not a good example. But on a clear day, what you can do is you can fast forward the time to like 9 p.m. Okay, and then you can say my house is at this location. It makes distinctions between Carmichael, Citrus Heights, and Sacramento, and so on and so forth. So it actually does allow a fairly fine specification of location. And then you can specify, okay, if I look to the north, what should I see at that time? So you will definitely see the Polaris, the North Star, but you can also see, how the other stars, will be located. There's an option to turn on pictures, so you can actually look at the constellation, where the Libra looks like a scale, and then you can see all the other constellations. It's really great for people who are just learning about the constellations. If you want to find a particular star, you can actually search for it. If you have a telescope, it will tell you how to dial in the settings on the telescope to find that particular star. You can even dial in the magnification setting of your telescope, and it will show you what you should be seeing through the telescope. So it's really kind of nice and useful if you're into astronomy. I have that installed on the laptop, which makes it very useful because I can take my laptop to the backyard, and then I can use either binocular or a telescope or whatever to kind of observe the stars. If you want to look for planets, it will tell you where the planets are. Like I think Jupiter should be visible, if it's not cloudy these days. You have just go ahead and look up all these different ones. They're all kind of interesting in one way or another. Now let me go to internet, because internet is kind of interesting because it has all the same software, well, and then some, all the browsers that we use. And the question is, why do I want to install a browser on a portable device when it is already on just about any computer that I use? So let's just go take a look at Firefox here. You can install Firefox as a portable application. It will take up 77 megabytes on your external storage device. So the question now is, why do I want to install Firefox on a SD card or a thumb drive when it is already installed on just about any computer that I use? Okay, the answer is you might want to keep your add-ons with you. Okay, how many people have used add-ons with your Firefox? Okay, AdBlock, anyone? Yep. So there are add-ons in Firefox that are very useful. And with a portable application, the add-ons are actually stored on the storage device as well. So are your settings. Okay, if you want to turn off cookies for most of the websites and only enable it for certain websites, that setting is stored on your SD card or your USB thumb drive. If you want to crank security all the way up, and You have your password stored, not a good idea, but you can store that on your SD card as well. So everything that you do with your browser, all the settings, the cache, all the bookmarks, and so on and so forth, they're all stored on the same SD card, which is kind of handy in a way. So that's the reason why you might want to consider installing Firefox or other browsers on a thumb drive instead of onto a hard drive. Okay. Any questions at this point? No questions? Yep, go ahead.
It says at the bottom also available Microsoft Firefox ESR Portable Edition 10.1.x. Does that mean that there are other sites besides portable apps and stuff that get the same thing?
No, this is the same site. I think it is still in portable apps. ESR is extended service. What is the release? Extended support release. So that means it is just an older version that is still supported. So in case you don't want the latest one because there may be unstable features, this is the one that you want to use because you know what it can do and you know the behavior. ESR means it is not stale. If they find any security issues, they will fix it in the ESR. Whereas if you run an older version of just something, you may have old security problems unplugged. Any other questions? That's a good point. I did not realize they have the ESR or the older version that is stable. All right. Any other questions? They have more than 300 applications, so I think for those of you who are curious, it will take you a little bit of time to download, install, play with, uninstall, download another one, play with it, uninstall, and so on and so forth, to go through all of the programs offered by in the form of portable application. I think this is one of the kind of most interesting things you can do with Windows is portable apps, because they don't even this does not exist for Linux. Okay, so there's no such no such thing called portable apps for Linux, but there is for Windows, which is kind of cool. I don't think they're available for Macs either, but I know you can run Windows on a Mac. Yes. Kind of defeats the purpose of a Mac. Yep.
Now, you said the cloud is included. What do you mean by that?
Sorry?
The portable application, the cloud.
The cloud. The cloud doesn't have a whole lot to do with portable applications, because a portable application is still installed on a device that you have to carry. And when there's an upgraded version, you have to reinstall it or apply what we call a patch to bring your version up to date. So this is this is kind of the other way of running a cloud application, because you're still downloading and installing your application, but instead of installing on a computer, you're now installing on a removable drive. So wherever you use your removable drive, you have your applications at your fingertip. That's a good question. And for those of you who use the micro SD card, everything can be stored on the little thing that's a little bit, depending on your size, okay, depending on your fingers. This is really smaller than the size of my thumbnail. And you can have all of that stuff. You can carry all that stuff with you, with a tiny little device.
So you carry it on that, and have it instead of having it installed in your computer, taking up memory, basically.
Right, but they don't really take up that much storage. But the whole point of making it portable is you don't have to install it on a computer that you may not have administrative access to. So if I install all of these applications on an SD card like this, I can go to any Windows machine. As long as I can plug in my SD card, I'll be able to use my applications, because I don't need to install the application on those computers where I do not have administrative access.
Because you have that.
Because I'm just running everything from here.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and one of the features with thumb drives, using on say like a Windows 7 operating system, is that not only can you run stuff from that thumb drive, but if you want, you can dedicate some of the space on your thumb drive to boost up your RAM.
On your computer?
It'll actually, you plug in your thumb drive and you designate on your thumb drive using RAM boost how much of that you want to use as additional memory for the computer that you're using. You can augment your memory in other words.
That's cool.
Now RAM boost, using a thumb drive does have some negative effects. It does make your computer quite a bit slower, because the write speed on a thumb drive typically is really slow. So unless you have a class 10 SD card or something that guarantees a really high transfer rate, doing that on a slower device can really bog down everything. So that kind of brings up the other thing somebody asked about, but how fast can I make my portable device? Because remember what I said, with a typical, I don't have that with me. With a typical thumb drive, I'm just going to use this as a prop. It really is not a thumb drive. But with a regular thumb drive that you buy at Walmart, if you buy something for $6 for 8 gigabytes, it's going to be okay for storing documents, but the access speed is going to be a little bit slow. Okay, especially when you write big files onto the device. It will only go at about 4 to 5 megabytes per second, which it doesn't sound very slow, but it is. Okay, that's actually pretty slow. So if you are trying to run applications like all the portable apps from your external device or external storage device, you want to make sure that it is fast. And there are several ways to make it fast. If your computer has an SD card slot, okay, that takes on SD cards, you can buy faster SD cards. SD cards are rated by classes. The slowest you can buy today is probably a class 4, and then they have class 6. I have not seen any class 8, but then there are also class 10. The class is basically depending on how fast you can write to the device and how fast you can read from the device. The higher the number, like 10, the faster device, because a class 10 device is intended for camcorders. Yep.
What would determine the transfer speed when they're making it? What's the difference between a class 4 and a class 10?
A class 10, go ahead.
Classes define the minimum read and write speed.
Right.
A class 10 is a minimum of 10 megabytes per second.
Right. Now, you have to read the documentation on the package really carefully. Even SanDisk is now getting very tricky. They say, the transfer speed of a class 10 device, they will say it's up to 16 megabytes per second, but then they will have a little fine print that says, for the first 10 megabytes. So when you want to write to it in a sustained way, it may not be the speed that they're advertising. But as you said, the class classification is basically saying what is the minimum transfer speed. Now, do they specify it has to be sustained, or do they specify it can be just burst?
I'm not exactly sure. I just know it's the minimum.
Okay, so let's look it up. Okay, well, this part is actually very important of the class. Is what if you want to know something that TAC has not talked about in the class? Well,
you Google it.
Google it, exactly. So in this case, you have SD card class rating. Okay. And I would go to Wikipedia and find out what Wikipedia has to say about it. I can actually jump to speed class rating, so I'm just going to click that here. Okay, the next question is, can you trust Wikipedia on something like this?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. For the most part, anything that's technical, anything that is not political, philosophical, or religious, and of a nature where things can be interpreted in a different way, you can actually trust Wikipedia for the most part. Okay, so this is the class rating. The SD Association defines standard speed classes indicating minimum performance to record video. Okay, so class 2, class 4 and 6, class 10. And when you look at this part here, the minimum performance is 10 megabytes per second for class 10, which is twice the performance of a regular thumb drive that you buy for $6 or so. Okay. It also says right here, it is, okay, speed classes 2, 4, and 6 asserts that the card supports the respective number of megabytes per second, which is a transfer rate, as a minimum sustained write speed for a card in a fragmented state. So it is very specific that it is, it has to be able to sustain that performance. Class 10 asserts that the card supports 10 megabytes per second as a minimum, non-fragmented sequential write speed. So in this case, it is a little bit different because it is non-fragmented, which means you have to have a big block of free sectors available, and it has to be sequential write as well, so it cannot jump around and say, I want to write to this file a little bit, write to that file a little bit, write to this file a little bit. That doesn't count as non-fragmented sequential write. Are there any questions? So class 10 is pretty much dedicated for camcorders, solid state camcorders where you can just put in a little SD card and it records on the SD card. Because in those cases, you're definitely writing sequential and on a particular file. You just have to make the drive, you have to make sure it's not fragmented. Yep.
Class 10, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's at 10 megabytes per second. It could be more.
It can be more.
Yes. And it could be less if it was fragmented.
That is correct. That is correct. So that's why the specification is very specific. We can only guarantee 10 megabytes per second as a minimum when the way you access the drive fit these particular requirements. Yep, there was another hand.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I actually have I have 2 micro SDs that are both class 6 by the exact same manufacturer. One of them just barely gets 6 megabytes, while the other one gets around 14. So it's really just the minimum.
Yeah, it really is just the minimum. It also depends on how.
Both fresh and formal.
Oh, those are freshly okay, but you haven't used one for a long extended period of time.
Them both at the same time.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, because if you have used one for a long period of time already, the internal load balancing can change the actual speed of the device.
There is actually a difference. One of them is from Taiwan, and the other one is from China. The Chinese one is significantly slower.
I see. Which is not surprising, okay? Because they probably chose a chipset that is less expensive, and that barely just meet the minimum requirement.
You ever seen some of those pictures where they have like a big old external drive that's advertised at like 160 gigabytes, and then all of a sudden it only reads like 256 megabytes? I'm like, what's going on? You crack open the thing and it's just a flash drive.
So it's a scam, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, you power up the drive. There's no vibration from the motor spinning. Then okay, something is not right here.
Right.
Or you toss it around, it doesn't have the right weight.
You get really good at imitating.
Oh yeah. Okay, so are there any questions about portable applications? Are there any questions about why it is useful in certain cases? I'm not saying they're useful on all cases, but they're definitely useful in some cases. Now, if you bring your computer with you all the time, and you always have access to your own computer, then portable applications doesn't really buy you a lot. Okay, it's only helpful when you don't want to take your own computer with you. You want to carry something like this in your back pocket, and that's all you want to carry. But you do have access to computers. They're just not your computers. Okay, so if that's your scenario, then portable applications can be very helpful because you can carry your documents as well as your application with you, no matter which computer you go to. So are there any questions about portable applications and why it is useful? Yep.
This might sound like a bit of an odd question, but if you can use your SD card or a micro SD card like a flash drive, that means that you could install it on like a micro SD flash drive, right? Well, if you had that in your phone and you tethered it to, you've already partitioned off part of your SD card and then installed one of these mobile apps, could you physically plug in your phone and run Libreoffice?
Yes, all you have to do is to configure your phone, so when you plug in your phone through USB to your computer, you just have to click on your phone and say, mount the storage on the computer, then you can run your portable application from your phone as well. Now, you remember, for the rest of the class, remember you cannot run the apps on your phone. Your phone is really just being used as an external storage device. But yes, the answer is yes, definitely. So you can recharge your phone while you're running your portable applications.
And I wouldn't have to carry an extra thumb drive.
That is correct. Then you would not have to carry an extra thumb drive, but you do have to carry your extra USB cable.
That is true.
Right. And you can tether your computer at the same time too.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I was just kind of curious, like I said.
Go ahead.
I think of a lot of the computer courses, so you get a lot of certification. And I'm just kind of curious, every last one of them that I take up, everybody talk about open source software. I mean, is that something that that the school is more geared, or the teachers more geared to just let students know than when I'm spending the money to get other, software or what? Because I mean, like I say, I take Linux classes, I take a lot of different computer classes, and everybody, everybody still talk about the open source, software. I'm just kind of curious.
It's because they're all crazy. So, well, somebody told me that when I started here in year 2000. Okay, I started teaching here in year 2000. And I was already using Linux myself and using a lot of the open source products at that time, year 2000. I was told by one of the faculty members here, who I would not name, that I'm doing my students a disservice talking about open source and Linux and stuff like that, because that's not what people use in the real world. But I think time has changed. Okay, I think open source software has kind of established itself. Now, not all open source programs or applications are the same. Okay, some definitely are more buggy and unstable, and some are more mature. Like Libreoffice is a very mature product and it's really stable. But the whole point is not only that it is free, okay, as in free of charge, but it is also free, as in freedom, so that anyone can contribute to the project. I think that really is the key part of open source. And it's a different model. A lot of developers have already started to go into the open source route to try to utilize all the other people not in the organization to help contribute to the projects. And for the most part, I don't really have any need to use any non-open source software. Like for teaching my classes, for writing, stuff that I need to write, I use all open source products. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question or not, but I think it's an alternative that people should be aware of at least. Is that?
Like I said, I was just curious, and stuff, and as far as the person that told you about Linux and stuff, they must haven't been working in the East Coast, because all of the jobs I applied for in the East Coast, as far as telecommunication analyst and stuff, you got to have your certification in Linux and everything else in order to get a job overseas and in the East Coast.
Now, Linux is a kind of special case, because in the case of Linux, it's an infrastructure product. In other words, a lot of the servers that we run, web servers, file servers, database servers, and stuff and so on, they are Linux based. But for one important reason. The one important reason is, one, it is free. Okay, the licensing does not depend on how you use it. Like in the case of Windows Server Edition, it depends on the number of simultaneous connection. They price you differently. Okay, and in the case of Linux, there's no such inherent price-based limitation. The limitation is just based on the performance of your hardware. If your hardware can support 10,000 connections at the same time, yes, you can get all 10,000 connections at the same time. Am I doing okay in this? Yeah. So that's why Linux is more used as an infrastructure tool. As a desktop, it's not as popular because a lot of people don't want to get used to the interface in Linux. But it's slowly changing too. With Ubuntu and some of the other distributions, it's getting a little bit easier, and people are at least looking into Linux as a desktop alternative. Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? Any questions about open source? No questions about that. Yep. Go ahead.
If I was a programmer, I wanted to add something to open source. How would if I added my programming and did whatever, how would that work? Would you send it back to the company and they would just distribute it out and let everybody know that you can
okay.
use this type of feature, or how would that work?
That is a very good question. The question was, if you want to contribute to open source, be a part of the community of open source, how do you go about doing it? That's a very good question. The first thing is you have to become a programmer or developer first. So you have to know C, C++, or Java programming. Okay, so you have to go through our computer science program here. Will prepare you a little bit for that. But you really want to get a bachelor's degree if you want to pursue that as a career. And then what you do is you go to your specific projects. There's a website called Sourceforge.net. Okay. As the name implies, Sourceforge is a place where you can park your projects, especially open source projects. You can register for free, and they will allow you to basically park your project there. They'll give you space to store your source files. They'll give you the tools to manage your source files as well as your distributions, and everything is free. You can also open up your project to multiple people. So instead of just being your own, the only developer, your project can now include additional people. So we'll go ahead and click on one of these projects. We'll click on Dia, which is a diagram editor. So what you can do, if you want to contribute, you can go to, let me see here. There are several ways to do it. One way is to go to tickets. Okay. Now, depending on what you are, how you want to contribute to the project, when you go to tickets, okay, supported tickets, support requests. There we go. So these are specific quote-unquote tickets for this particular project. Now, some of these tickets are bug reports. In other words, a particular user tried to use a feature and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So what you do in that case is you file a ticket to describe the problem itself, and you say, okay, I'm trying to use this feature according to the documentation. It should work blah, blah, blah like this, and I tried that out and it did not work. And then you describe the symptom. So that way, whoever is doing the development can read, this and this list here and identify the problems, and they can fix it. Now, at the same time, if you want to contribute and you are a programmer yourself, you can actually look at the source code, and then you can try to find out where the bug is, and then you can try to fix it. So let's say you did that and you fixed the problem, okay, and you verify, okay, I originally had this problem. I downloaded the source code, I fixed the problem, I recompiled, I reran the program, and the bug was fixed. You can also upload your patch, basically the changes that you made to the software through one of these tickets, and say, okay, I found this problem, but this particular patch seemed to fix the problem. So the people who are actually in charge of the open source project can look at your ticket and say, oh, great, somebody found a problem and fixed the problem. They look through your patch, they look through the changes that you propose to make, and they say, this is completely reasonable, we know this is the problem, and this is a good solution to that. And they can incorporate your changes into the main product again, so the next time they redistribute the product, it will have that problem fixed. So that is the most common way to contribute to an open source project, is to, one, bug report helps a lot. So you don't even have to be a developer or a programmer to just say, okay, I'm trying to use this feature this way, and this way, and it does not work. It crashes or doesn't do what it's supposed to. But you have to be more specific. So this way, the actual developers of the product can look at your bug report and say, okay, we have a problem here. It seems to be kind of urgent. We'll assign someone to fix that problem. But if you are a developer and you want to actually contribute to the project, you can actually try to fix the source code yourself, and then you can attach your fix to your ticket and say, I'm proposing this change to this file to fix this particular problem. And if the people managing the project look at your changes and say, this is completely reasonable, this is a good change, we want to incorporate that, then you have just contributed to the project. So that's basically how most people get started. Now, once you get into a project more and more, you can ask to be included into the maintainer of a particular project. So that way you don't have to go through the ticketing system anymore, and you have more access to the source file. All right? Did I answer your question? All right, excellent. Well, I'm glad that you guys asked all these questions, because they're all related to open source, and I did not even think about these particular topics until you guys asked about it.
Go to Google, don't talk about it.
Yeah, just ask Dr. Google. Yeah. So this is all the stuff that we talked about here. Why the portable version has certain advantages. The only one disadvantage of the portable version is it runs a little bit slower. Now, how slow it is depends on your external storage device. Okay, if you have a particularly slow one, it can be significantly slower. But if you pay a little bit more and get a faster device, it should be okay. Okay, so here we have a little bit of a Libreoffice versus Microsoft Office, and I try to write this, being as neutral as possible. I do want to share with you, one thing that I have observed. My kids go to the San Juan School District, where they use Macintosh in every classroom. Okay, they use Macs, and we have a problem because at home I try to use open source software, LibreOffice and stuff like that, and LibreOffice can save to Microsoft formats. Okay, like a presentation file, like a PPT file or PPTX, it can save to a PPT format. But the format that it saves to apparently is not 100% compatible to Microsoft Office installed on a Mac. So for the longest time, my 7th grader was complaining that her project that she saved on the thumb drive would not open at school. So later on, I just had no choice but to install, to purchase a Windows machine and install Microsoft Office on the machine to get the compatibility needed for her school project. What would be the other solution to this particular problem?
The portable app that you talked about.
Well, the portable app cannot run on Macs. Yeah. One of the solution is for the school district to adopt LibreOffice, because one, it is free, okay, and two, it's a fairly stable product. So if the San Juan School District IT department says, okay, we'll install LibreOffice on all the machines, so that these teachers and students will have a choice between the two Office suites, that will fix the problem, because now it does not have to impose on students and their parents to run Microsoft Office at home. Yep, go ahead.
What about Google? They have some presentation program?
Yes, but at school, the San Juan School District also blocks Google because they are afraid that people would use Gmail and just spend the whole day checking the email and stuff like that.
No, but I mean,
like Google Drive?
At home, would format it and save it and then bring that in.
You mean as a Google document?
The Google presentation software.
The Google presentation software can save to a Microsoft format, but it may still have compatibility issues. In fact, we tried that too. My kid actually tried that too. We used the Google presentation software, save it to PPTX format, and brought it to school, and it was still not completely compatible with the Mac version of Microsoft Office.
Why is it that they don't, are they not compatible?
Because the PPTX format is a closed format. Microsoft does, well, I guess they did, publish the file format, but it's not like everything is published. So it's really difficult for open source people to comply to the entire file format.
It's a licensing issue?
No, it's not a licensing issue. I think it just has to do with Microsoft has no interest for compatibility with open source products. Why would they want to be compatible with LibreOffice?
I understand.
Yep. Because if Microsoft Office is 100% compatible with LibreOffice, Microsoft would think that they're just pushing more people to use LibreOffice instead of Microsoft Office. So here is the argument of LibreOffice versus Microsoft Office. If LibreOffice is free, why are people still buying and installing and using Microsoft Office? Well, there are valid reasons. Okay, there are many reasons. Awareness is one. Many people are simply not aware of the existence of LibreOffice or open source products in general. Compatibility is the other one. Now, LibreOffice can open and save to Microsoft Office formats, okay? But it's not 100% compatible. It's not 100%, especially when VBA or Visual Basic for applications is involved. In the business world, there are a lot of applications where VBA is integrated into a document, into a spreadsheet, into a Word document, into a presentation file. So whenever VBA is used in a document, you can pretty much say it's not compatible anymore. People can easily install both Office suites at the same time, and it doesn't take up all that much space either. But people don't do that. And I'm using this in one school district as an example because I think it is unreasonable when there's an open source product available and they still don't install or support the open source version, and basically force all the students and their parents to have to install the proprietary version of, well, not version, but the proprietary Office suite. I think it's unreasonable. And this part here just talks about how the whole problem can be solved if they just install LibreOffice in addition to Microsoft Office. I'm not saying replace one with the other. I'm simply saying support both at the same time, so the parents and the students can choose. Okay, I don't want to spend $200 or $100 to install Microsoft Office at home. I want to use LibreOffice. Well, we have LibreOffice installed here, no problem. Or people say, well, my dad is a business owner. We already have Microsoft Office installed. I'm familiar with that product. Well, you can use that too. No problem. I don't see any conflict. Yep, go ahead.
So Microsoft Office, once you buy it, there's no upgrading like every year, there's updating. There's no updates if necessary.
I do not think that at this point that's the pricing model, but they can change the pricing model if they want to. In other words, I think that's going to be the model in the future. Is when you purchase, quote unquote, when you purchase a software, you're really just renting it. In other words, they can say that okay, this X amount of money is only good for 1 year. Next year you have to pay again to continue to use the product. Go ahead.
The brand new Office package, if there's a student Office package, it's a 4-year rental basically.
Okay.
It's like $75, but you do get every upgrade that comes out in that in between time. You get just added on for nothing.
So $75, to cover 4 years.
$75 or $80 for your entire school experience.
Okay, well that's a pretty good price.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, but you can only install it on 1 or 2 computers, up to 2. Yep. So if you want to use it on more than 2 computers, then you will actually have to pay for additional licenses. Yep. Yep. Go ahead. Okay. So we do have a comparison here. Okay, somebody actually did a comparison of both Office suites, and look at the comparison. So you have comparisons, smart rating, find the best smart rating consists of 2 parts. The first part is weighted average from PC World, PC Magazine, CNET, and PC Pro. The second one is the quantitative rating. It's an accurate and objective rating system for comparing various Office suites. The price here, which is $279 for home and business, is not for student use. Okay, because all of you, even though you're a student here at this point, I don't think you want to remain a student forever. Okay, well, some people may want to do that, but most people do not want to remain a student forever. So that means at one point, okay, at some point you will not be qualified anymore to use the student discount. Then you have to pay for it. And this is how much you have to pay for the home and business edition of Microsoft Office. Now this is older because it's based on 3.6 with LibreOffice, and Microsoft Office is based on 2010. Right off the bat, in terms of platform, you can see the big difference here. Microsoft Office only supports Windows and Mac OS X, whereas the other one, support Linux and Unix in general as well. So that means it's a little bit more compatible with more platforms. And then you can read the rest. Basically you can say, oh, okay, certain things it's better, or certain magazines rate LibreOffice, 3.5 stars out of 5, which is fair, but not really good. But another magazine rated 5 out of 5, and at the same time, the rating for Microsoft Office is only 4 out of 5 from PC Magazine, and it's 4 out of 5 also for CNET. So you can basically read what experts have to say about the product as well. So I'm not going to go through the entire thing. You can read this and kind of find out how these two products compare. And once again, the key is you don't have to choose one over the other one. You can install both, use them, and then figure out which one seems to be better. Then you can uninstall one, or you can just keep both updated all the time as well. Are there any questions about LibreOffice? Open source? No? Okay. So now we are done with the case study of LibreOffice. And pretty much we have also finished portable apps, okay? Because we were just kind of intertwining all the different topics today. This one is really just pointing to the home page of portable apps, which we have been at for some time already. You can look at security. It also has some security software, and I think I'll just go to games because I think most people are interested in that as well. You can have antivirus and anti-spyware software that is already open source. I cannot say anything about the effectiveness of these products. Some of you probably have used some of these and can tell me more about it. I personally have not used a whole lot about these products, so I can't really say much about it. You can use firewall. This is a software firewall, not a hardware firewall. Password manager, secure file deletion. Now, this is an interesting thing. Well, once you delete a file, isn't it gone? No, when you delete a file, it goes to the recycler, right? What about, okay, I right-click on the recycler, and then we say, dump the trash or empty the trash can. It should be gone by then, right? No, not really, because the file is really still, for the most part, intact in the file system. Okay, the only time it's gone is some other file that you're creating is taking up the space of the file that you just deleted. That's the only time when the file is quote-unquote truly gone. But if you're deleting 100 files, how can you be sure that the content of those 100 files is truly overwritten and be gone at that time? You don't. So that means if you're deleting a file, it is possible for someone to go to your computer and retrieve the files that you thought were deleted. Okay? Even if you have overwritten the file, there are still ways for people to retrieve content from the file, from your so-called deleted files. So these are tools to basically make sure that when you are deleting a file, you're leaving nothing behind. Yep.
And what does it actually do?
Well, what does this software do?
Yeah, how's it erase it completely?
Well, Eraser Portable is a secure data removal tool that runs directly from your iPod, USB thumb drive, portable hard drive, blah, blah, blah. You plug into the features. It's data wiping. In other words, what it's going to do is it's going to overwrite the sectors on the hard drive where the file was, and it will overwrite it multiple times. Okay. Now, this has to do with the physics on a hard drive. A hard drive is basically a platter, a disk, okay, that's spinning. When you write data on it, it's on a track. Okay. The disk head is not always aligned perfectly, so when you overwrite a track, you might leave certain parts of the track still containing, what it used to be. Okay. The best way to do it is really just to draw a picture. Okay, so we are looking at a track here because the whole disk is a really big thing, so I'm only looking at a very small portion here. So let's say this is the quote-unquote width of a track. Your disk head is smaller than the actual track, so I'm using a different color here. So sometimes when disk head is writing onto your hard drive, it's using this portion of the entire track. I'm just going to color this green. Okay, and other times, because of mechanical errors and stuff like that, it may be slightly offset, okay, just like this. And over time, it will just use up different portions of the same track. When you're deleting the file, you're only overwriting a very specific part of the track. So if I use an eraser, So let's say when you're erasing a file, it's only erasing this part. What about the parts that is still around? There are programs to make your hard drive, to make the disk head just move over a little bit, just enough to pick up the residual magnetic pickup. It can pick up the residual magnetic pattern out of your hard drive. So even though your file or the sector is overwritten, it is still possible to leave something behind, some residual magnetic signature behind for specific software to pick it up. And that's why when you overwrite a file, when you overwrite an area on your hard drive, these tools will not just overwrite it with 0, it will try to overwrite it with random data and multiple times, so that even tools designed to pick this up will have a hard time of picking it up. Does anyone work for like a computer forensics department of the police department or something? No? Nobody? Because they use tools like that. So that even though a file is quote-unquote deleted and have a tool like this to go through it, they can still retrieve information from a hard drive. Yep.
I think Mr. Lestrange was talking about his friend was a forensic.
Yeah, Ernie.
Data recovery.
Yep, that's Ernie. Yeah, he's interesting. The only way to really make sure there's nothing left on your hard drive, one is to, well, you can tear it apart, but the magnetic signature will still be on the platter.
Sure.
To remove all the magnetic pattern is to heat it up.
So what?
Heat it up, make it hot.
Melt.
Set up a bonfire. But you have to be careful in that case because there's lead and also all other kinds of toxic substance. So definitely don't do it in your oven. Okay, don't go home and crank up your oven to 500 degrees and stick all your hard drives into the oven and say, "Honey, what are you doing with our oven?" I'm wiping our hard drives. What is all that smoke coming out of the oven? I don't know.
It's very, very technical.
It's all very technical. This is all.
Don't put it in a microwave.
No?
Don't put it in a microwave.
Definitely not in a microwave. It can kill your microwave. Okay. Now this is another thing you guys should know. We have 2 minutes so we can talk about it. What happens when you turn on your microwave with nothing inside? Nothing at all. It will break the microwave. The microwave has a device called the. I have to be careful here. It's the Magnetron, okay? Because I always kind of confuse Magnetron with Megatron. Watch too much Transformers, right? So the Magnetron device is a very specific device. It is the one thing that creates the microwave. It creates radiation, at the microwave level or frequency. If you don't have anything that absorbs your microwave, that thing, the Magnetron, can overheat and kill itself. So you definitely don't want to turn on a microwave when there's nothing inside. You always want to make sure there's something that can absorb microwave. And water is a really good thing. Always put a little bit of something with water content in the microwave when you turn it on. I'm not going to talk about all the experiments that people have done on YouTube with microwaves. You can search for that and watch it. One particular one is really fun. They use a grape. They cut a grape into 2 halves, with one part still attaching. They were able to make the grape glow in a microwave. Yep.
There's a certain way that you can cut it where it creates a plasma fireball.
Yep. Turn the grape into a plasma fireball. But you have to do some mods with your microwave first. You have to kind of you have to remove the light bulb, so you can see the actual effect of the plasma. Yep.
I only got this to happen once, and I don't exactly remember what I did, but I used like a store-bought carrot, not one of the baby carrots. Put that just by itself in the microwave because there's like a higher mineral content within the carrot. There's like, you could see energy arcing throughout the thing. And I've only had that happen once.
Wow.
It was just a weird old thing. I was just wondering what could happen.
Bugs Bunny would do it.
Yeah. Wasn't very
I'll see
edible
you guys on
afterwards.
Thursday. Don't play with your microwaves.